Hi everyone, hope that you all are doing well. Today we'll explore, learn and implement reactive programming using Java Spring Boot app. But before we jump into the video's context, I would like to request you, if you gain some knowledge out of my videos, please do support by liking, sharing and commenting on the videos. And if new to the channel, please subscribe and press the bell icon. First, let's go to the official website of reactive programming of Spring and let's understand what is reactive programming. So if you go by definition that is provided here, reactive system have certain characteristics that make them ideal for low latency, high throughput workload. Project reactors and the Spring portfolio work together to enable developers to build enterprise grade reactive system that are responsive, resilient, elastic and message driven. So if we go by the question that is what is reactive programming, reactive processing is a paradigm that enables developers build non-blocking asynchronous applications that can handle back pressure flow control. So if I give you a simple gist of uh, when we write a normal application in Spring Boot, when we are writing a REST API using, what we do is when we hit a API, we wait for the response, right? And that is called as synchronous programming, right? Where we wait for the response from that API and then we process further after we get the response, right? And asynchronous, if I go by the word asynchronous, that means that we don't need to wait for the response, we can proceed further with other tasks, right? So what is reactive programming? It is an asynchronous paradigm that deals with data and event driven execution. So basically it is like instead of blocking the threads while waiting for the response, it frees up the resources to handle other tasks, right? So if I give you an example that if we are building a e-com website or e-com application wherein we need to get, like, we have two API calls that we have to fulfill that two API calls. One is to get the product information, the other one is to get the reviews of that particular product, right? And if we go by the general building of the application using HTTP, general REST API building, so what we do is we wait for first we'll hit the API of product information, we'll get the product information from our database, we'll wait for the response from that API, right? And then we'll hit our API to get the reviews of that particular product, and then we'll wait for the response, and then we'll combine that response and then give it to the user, right? So that will take a lot of time to process the request. But if we go by the reactive programming paradigm, so basically what we are doing, we are not waiting for the API's response, we are assigning some other task to that particular thread only, right? We'll get the response, we'll then merge that response and give it to the user. So basically what will happen is a request would be given to the product service to get the product information and then left, right? We'll not wait for the response to come, we'll directly jump to another API call that will bring the review, and then when we'll have the result, we'll be combining that result and then we'll be showing it to the user. So basically that will protect your like application from consuming a lot of time on the API calls on the response to the user, right? So basically a large API calls are needed in an application. There we use reactive programming, right? It is non-blocking, it will not block your thread, it is asynchronous, it will not wait for the response, the threads will be assigned some other task till the time we'll get the response from the previous calls, right? So that is called as reactive programming. So how we achieve reactive programming in Spring, or what we say Spring Boot, is by using Webflux. So Spring Webflux has been used to achieve the reactive programming. So if we go by the Spring Webflux documentation, it says the original web framework included in the Spring framework, Spring MVC, was purpose built for the servlet API and servlet container. The reactive stack web framework, Spring Webflux, was added later in the 5 version. Basically what it says is that the reactive stack web framework, so for the reactive programming part, Spring has provided a Spring Webflux to use, right? So basically it is fully non-blocking, supports reactive streams, back pressure, and runs on such servers as Netty, Undertow, and servlet containers, right? So today we'll be learning that how to build a small application, just a small application, just I would say a hello world kind of an example of Spring Webflux and reactive programming. So then further I'll be creating more videos on Spring Webflux, and we'll be also creating a project using Spring Webflux. I'll tell you one of the very good application of Spring Webflux is that like it handles a lot of API calls, right, asynchronously. So basically it will help you out when you are designing some application related to stock market, right, wherein the calls are like very quick, right. So it will help you. One of the examples of like Spring Webflux where you can use it in your applications are stock markets, right. So we'll build that kind of an application further in my videos using Spring Webflux. This is just an introduction to this Spring Reactive Programming using Spring Webflux. So now let's jump to the IDE and let's design a small example. I'm on my IDE. Let's go on file and let's say new, and let me say project. I'll design a Spring Starter project. Let's name the project as Spring Reactive Hello World. So this is my Spring Boot Reactive Hello World example. We are using Java S21 and my packages are com.code with raman.implementation. Let's go next. Here what we have to do is we have to add the Webflux dependency, right? Spring Reactive Web, right? You can say the name, you can also see the name. So Spring Reactive Web, basically it is a Spring Webflux dependency. So we just need this dependency, as we'll be implementing a very small example today to get an understanding of how we use Spring Webflux to write asynchronous application calls. So let's finish and let's import the project. So my project is ready, and if I go to the pom.xml, we'll see the Spring Webflux dependency here. So I'm on Java 21 and you can see the dependency is Spring Boot Starter Webflux, right? So it actually enables your application to have reactive programming, right? So what we can do is we can create a small example. First let's understand what example it is. I've already discussed the example previously, but I'll elaborate the example again. Like if we go by the traditional way, if I'm designing a ecom application, and in my controller call I need to hit two APIs to get data. Those two APIs are like, I want to get the product information from my database. I also want to get the reviews of that product, right? So what we'll do is we will go to that controller call, we'll create product service, we'll create review service, and my first call would be to the product service, and we'll say that bring in this product information. That API call will be completed, we'll get the output, then we'll jump to another API call. That would be we'll be saying that bring the review of this particular product, and then that API call would be done, and then the response would be combined, and then we have to show it to the. But in the case of reactive programming, so if you see on the screen as well, let's assume that you are hitting a product service to get the data of the product, information of the product, and that is taking 3 seconds call, right? And if you see the review API, if we are hitting the review API, let's assume it take 2 seconds. So when we say that we are hitting the controller to get the review and the product information, then in total the time would be 3 plus 2 seconds, that is 5 seconds to get the result, right? But when we talk about the reactive programming, we are saying that we will concurrently call the two APIs together, right? When we are calling a product service, it takes 3 seconds, and when we are calling the review service, it takes 2 seconds, right? But we are not waiting for the response to come, right? So now whichever number is max in this time, that is 3 seconds, so the complete output we will have in 3 seconds, right? So this is how reactive programming is effective while you are working on a lot of APIs to reduce your time to response, right? So this is the example that we'll be implementing through the code. So I'm on my IDE. Let's start by coding. Let's create a service. So let me like create a package called as service, and I'll create a service. Let me say a class, and let me name it as product service, right? In the product service, what we'll do is, first let me mark this as @service, and now we need to basically get the output, the information of a product from the service, right? So right now I am not interacting with the database. I'm just writing a hard-coded method to return some product information. So here how you can basically write the method is, like you can say public, and uh, two responses that reactive programming provides, interacting with the Spring Webflux. It provides a response of mono, that is the calling of a single API call, right? It provides a single API call, right? And then there is a flux output, right? So right now in this example we'll be using mono, so it will be like a single API call that we'll be creating, right? So what we'll be returning a string response, and we'll say get product, and we'll say return, we'll say mono, right? Mono, not mono. Just as I said that I am not interacting with the database to get the data, I'll be hard coding it. So let me hard code the data, that what I send it to the user. Say product colon iPhone 15. Let's take an example of iPhone 15, and element in of seconds and but here. So now this example signifies that the result would be product iPhone 15, right? But and the delay in the call would be of 3 seconds, right? We'd be like, then we are saying that 3 seconds would it would take 3 seconds for this service to get the output, right? And here we are saying that we are getting the output, we are getting the delayed output of 3 seconds of the product service, right? So whichever would be maximum from product and the review service, that time our total API would take to get the result out. We say review service, and here what I'll do is I'll also mark it as service first, right? And in this in the review we have to basically the example would remain the same. So public mono, it would be a string response, and we'll say get review, and we'll again return mono dot just, and in the just we'll pass uh, review of ours, and we'll say 4-star rating, right? And again we'll say element and plus duration dot of 2, right? So same, like we are passing some data to mono to return this data when the call is given to the get review method, when the get review method is being called, and the delay is of 2 seconds, right? So our services are ready. So now what I have to do is I have to call these from a API. So let me create another controller. So I'll say product review controller, right? Let me mark the rest controller, and also let me give some request mapping. Let me pass it as slash API. Now we need review and product service. So what I can do is I can simply say private final product service, private final review service. We will get these, and what we'll do is we will injection of. So let me say product review controller, and here we product service, product service, review service, and this dot product service equals to product service, this dot service equals view service, right? So our constructor injection is being done. So now what we need to create a get call, get mapping, and in the get mapping we'll say product info and review. Let's write a method, and this will be basically returning a mono string output because we are getting the mono string. Let's say mono string here. We'll say get details method, and we don't and return the out. Basically, there is a method that will allow you to call the APIs concurrent. So what we'll say, return mono immediately error or complete respectively. So basically what it is saying, when we then the complete return statement has been failed, right? The complete call is being failed and the error would be shown to the user. So this is the drawback, right, of zip method, right? So what we are doing is we need to write zip, and if I go into zip method, let me go into zip method, or rather let me write it like this, and first let me pass on the things. So I'll say product service, right? That is my first, and review service. So I'll say review service, right? And now I want to create mono string kind of an output, right? So how I can do that is by iterating over the output. So I'll say map, right? So it provides a map function. I'll say output output dot get t1. So basically it is a tuple. So when we say a tuple is being provided, so we'll say like a map is provided. So map has key value pairs. So our tuple 1 will generate, that is get t1 will generate the output of tuple 1, that is product service dot get product, and the get t2 will return the value of review service dot get review. So we'll say product dot get t1, and let's say a pipe, and then let me say it will act as a string, right? We'll close it, and I will say output dot get t2, right? So this is how our output will be generated, right? One bracket is missing, I guess, or rather what is happening, insert statement. Okay, yeah, one bracket, remove that bracket. Yes. So what we are doing here is we are calling the services concurrently. One is product service dot get product, and then we are calling review service dot get review concurrently, and then we are iterating over the output, mapping those output to tuple 1 and tuple 2, and the output will get generated and returned from this particular API call, right? So this is how you can use Mono to call the APIs concurrently and write your reactive programming using Spring Boot Webflux. So we are done with the application code, right? So if we how we'll run it, we'll run it through Postman. So let me now go to my main class. I have written a controller here only, no problem, that won't create any issue. So let's go and let's run the app. So my app has started, right? So my app has started. My API is /API/get product info, right? Oh, I didn't put a slash, I'm sorry. Let me rerun the application. Let me copy this. So my application has started, right? My application has started. Let's go on the Postman, and let's hit this API call. It's localhost 8080 API/get product info and review. I'll be hitting a get call and we'll get the response. So let's hit it. So you can see we got the response, product as iPhone 15 and review as 4-star rating, right? So this is coming from the APIs concurrently. So if I hit it again, it should be yes. So you can see that how our reactive programming is working. It's like we are hitting the concurrent calls to the API and we are getting the response, right? So this is how you can write the asynchronous programming, the reactive programming using Spring Webflux. So this was a small example and an introduction to Spring Reactive Programming using Spring Webflux. Hope that you people might have gained some knowledge out of this video. If so, please support the channel by liking, sharing and commenting. And if new to the channel, please subscribe and press the bell icon, and stay tuned. Some new videos, some new ideas, some new project videos will be coming up, so please stay tuned. Hope to see you in the next video. Till then, happy learning.